Yukara, sir. Yukara. Good evening, madam.
Good evening. We'll just wait for 2 3 minutes to see if anyone joins. Anyone else joins? তর্ক? বিয়ের সাথে হোক যাই হোক, নিউজিল্যান্ড আজকে 10 উইকেটসে 175 চেস করেছে, হ্যাঁ? 15 ও। হ্যাঁ, হ্যাঁ। আর দুজনেই 80 রানস করেছে। অ্যালেন 50 বলছে 84 আর সাইফার 42 বলছে 89। কিন্তু মানে আমরা তাহলে কাকে খেলাবো? আর আমাদের কি সাইফারকে খেলানো উচিত? ক্যামব্রিজের পারফরমেন্স বলে কিছু নেই, কিন্তু 25 ক্রোর দিয়ে কিনেছি না? ঠিক তো নেই, তুইও জানিস। ইস, নারায়ণটাকে। সেটাই মানে সাইফার টাইরানকে খেলালে কিন্তু মানে রাহানেকে, কিন্তু রাহানেকে তো আর খেলানো যাবে না। রাহানেকে দিনে নামাবি। মানে হ্যাঁ, মানে হার্ষিতটা গেছে না, পাঠিরানাকে তো আর বসানো যাবে না। হ্যাঁ, এরে এরে আমি মিউটেড ছিলাম না, আমি আনমিউটেড ছিলাম। হ্যাঁ বল। না দেখ, সেটা তো সল্টার নারায়ণ করলেও ছিল। মানে তো কয়েকদিন তো অনেকদিন তো আউট হয়নি 24-এ। আচ্ছা তুই জাস্ট, দুজন মিলে এমন খেলে, মানে মানে 5-6 ওভারেই এমন খেলিয়ে দেবে। আর ধর 6 ওভারে 80-90 প্রত্যেক দিন। আর একজন, ওটাই আর মানে দেখ, নারায়ণ 6 ওভার টিকতো, ঠিক আছে, নারায়ণ অনেক অনেক বছর, অনেক দিন 6 ওভার টিকেছে। আর ওদের 6 ওভার টিকলে আমাদের ইনাফ, আমাদের 6 ওভার টিকলে ওরা 90 তো করবে মিনিমাম। 90 না 80। হুম। না সেটা ঠিক। সেটা করে, কিন্তু আলটিমেটলি ও স্ট্রাইক রেটটা তো 200-300 থাকে, এদেরও তো আর 200-300 বেশি হয় না। এরা তো আর 400-500 স্ট্রাইক রেটে খেলে না। এই তুই 1 সেকেন্ড জাস্ট দাঁড়াবি, তুই জাস্ট 1 সেকেন্ড ধর, তুই 1 সেকেন্ড জাস্ট ধর। ওকে, তোকে আমি 1 মিনিটে ফোন করছি, হ্যাঁ? Since the first, apparently I took the lecture of the first week in, before the class was actually about to start. So I will. Today was supposed to be week 4 according to what I was taking, but I have been informed that week 1 has been missed out. So I will play the video, like my recording of week 1, what I taught that day, which was not shown. Is it visible? And is it audible as well? So I will be here for the entire session. So if there are any doubts, I'm here to solve it. It is still a live session, so you can stop me at any point.
Ma'am, not audible, madam. Excuse me, madam, not audible. Madam, no audio, madam. Audio is not hearing. Not audible, madam. Please. Not audible, madam. Your voice is not hearing.
Yes. One second, one second. Yes, yes.
Voice is not clear, madam. Not
My,
audible, madam.
is it not audible or is it not clear?
Now only audible, madam. Now only it is audible, madam.
Okay, okay. Before that, it was not audible.
Not audible, madam.
Okay, see now.
Ma'am, please, 1 second, please teach me, ma'am.
Okay, 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 okay. If it is causing a problem, sure.
Yes, madam. Yes, madam. Thank you, madam.
Okay, so I'll continue from here. One second. Okay, there are three types of elements in the 2D plane. One is a truss element, which only transfers axial force. I am audible, right?
Audible, madam.
Now it's audible, right?
Okay, audible, madam. Audible.
Okay, okay. So truss elements are built in such a way that they are two force members. They are pinned. The joints are pinned, and they only transfer axial force, so compression or tension. And beam elements transfer only shear force and bending moment. They don't have any specific kind of structure. Like beams can have any ends. Like they can have two hinge. They can have one roller, one hinge, two fixed ends. But they transfer only shear force and bending moment. And if a beam element also transfers axial force, like if something that looks like a beam element also transfers axial force, you will call it a frame element. So basically beam and frame elements are physically not different. They can be like one element can act as a beam element or a frame element depending on what is the kind of load that is going passing through it. But a truss element has a special structural quality, that is that all the truss elements are pin jointed, so it only transfers axial force. Then there are several types of supports in the 2D plane. Now so far we are just looking at 2D plane because in structural analysis, in basic structural analysis in the UG course, it is we start with 2D because the analysis is easy. But of course all physical actual real world structures are three dimensions. So in that case, like once you know the concepts in the two dimensional plane, you can extend it to 3D plane. So in 2D plane, there is one roller support which restricts displacement only in the direction perpendicular to it. So roller depends on which surface it is lying on. If it is lying on the horizontal plane, it restricts vertical displacement. And a roller could also be like an incline. There could also be an inclined roller. If the surface is like this, then it would restrict this moment. Sorry, this displacement. So it depends on the surface. Hinge support restricts displacement is in both direction. That means no trans in two perpendicular directions. So if anything restricts, if you can somehow restrict the displacement in two perpendicular direction, it means that the two perpendicular directions are basically independent of each other. So it means that displacement in all directions in the 2D plane are restricted, because if you take these two axes, all other directions have a component in this plane and this plane, along this axis and this axis. So if you restrict the direction displacement in two perpendicular direction, you have actually restricted it about all axes. And fixed support restricts displacement in both direction and also out of plane moment. So in the 2D plane, there are actually only three types of movement possible. One is like three types in the sense you can divide it. You can take the components along three independent direction. One is suppose the x-axis, whatever you call the x-axis. Other is the y-axis, which is perpendicular to whatever you have taken as the x-axis. And the other is the moment into or outside the plane. You see that if this is a 2D plane, this is one movement, this is one transverse displacement, this is one transverse displacement, and this moment which is in the plane but the sense is out of or into the plane, that is one. So these three are the degrees of freedom. Fixed support restricts all three degrees of freedom. Hinge support restricts 2 degrees of freedom, and roller support restricts only 1 degree of freedom. Okay. Now, structural indeterminacy. Structures that cannot be analyzed using statics or equations of equilibrium only are called indeterminate structures. So they require other material properties to be solved. What this means is that basically the number of unknown support reactions is more than the number of equations of equilibrium. So in a 2D plane, we have three equations of equilibrium. I would have to. Okay, I'll say three equations of equilibrium. That is the total. And when a body is under equilibrium, it means that there is no rigid body motion. So the total summation of all forces along the x-axis should be zero. So we say sigma fx equal to zero. the total summation of all forces along y-axis should be 0. So sigma f summation of fy should be 0, and also there can be no rotation, no rigid body rotation also. So the sigma of m about any one point in the 2D plane should also be 0. Those are the three equations we by default have for any structure in the 2D plane. Now, if I have more than 3 support reactions, then I cannot just solve it by basic physics. So that structure is called indeterminate, and they need some other material properties to be solved. And indeterminate structures are actually good because the more support you have, can you mute yourself, please? Okay, yes. Yeah, so indeterminate structure is actually good for us because the more number of support reactions you have, the more like more amount of redundancy you have. So it means that even if one support reaction fails, the other support reactions can still hold the structure stably. So that means it is safer. So all real world structures are generally indeterminate because to have a determinate structure is very risky. So if only once, even if like in the hinge, if only one part fails, like somehow if the y movement is somehow made free by some failure, immediately the entire structure will collapse. So that is very risky. So most real world structures are indeterminate. Degree of indeterminacy is number of unknown reactions minus the number of equations of equilibrium, like I said. And the number of equations of equilibrium is always 3 in the 2D plane. And total indeterminacy is divided into external and internal indeterminacy. External indeterminacy is total number of independent support reactions minus total number of available equations of static equilibrium, and this is also commonly called as indeterminacy because internal issues come in only very specific problems. Internal indeterminacy is total number of internal reactions minus available equations of equilibrium, and this is total. So, in some examples, this is a cantilever beam. So the cantilever beam has three support reactions, so Fx, Fy, and Mz, and there are three equations of equilibrium. So this is a determinate structure. The degree of indeterminacy is 0. This is a propped cantilever. A cantilever beam means that's a beam which has one fixed end and one free end, and a propped cantilever is where there is one fixed end and one roller support. So this is a propped cantilever. Here, how many support reactions do we have? Three from the fixed support and one from the roller support. Since it is restricting the movement in this in this y direction, there is one support reaction in the y direction. So we have four support reactions and three equations of equilibrium. So degree of indeterminacy is 4 minus 3 equal to 1. Here, there are two fixed ends in this frame. So support reactions here and three support reactions here. So I have six unknowns and three equations. So the degree of indeterminacy is 6 minus 3 equal to 3. And this is a kind of frame with two fixed two hinge supports. So it doesn't matter, okay, whatever the orientation is, whether it is a beam or a frame, it doesn't matter. Here the two legs are unequal. Here the two legs are equal. This is a symmetric structure. This is not a symmetric structure. It doesn't matter. All you have to see is how many support reactions and how many equations of equilibrium. So here there are two support reactions here and two here, and the total number of equations is 3. So the degree of indeterminacy is 4 minus 3, 1. Okay. Now these were the external support reactions. Now what we are going to look at internal forces in beams. Later in like previously I've already taught week 2 and 3. In week 2 we saw what are the internal forces in a truss. So in internal force in a truss means the member force which can be axial or which can be compression or tension in each member and each element of the truss. And in beams there are two types: shear force and bending moment. Now, a truss is made up of several independent members joined by hinge support, but a beam is a continuous kind of structure. So, but on the other hand, in a truss, every individual element has only transfers only one value of axial force, like through the entire entire length of a truss element, the axial force value remains constant, and the tension or compression nature also remains constant. But in a beam, the shear force and bending moment varies along the length. So we have a profile, we have a bending moment and shear force profile. That is why what we do is we find out a general, like we take a section x, like a distance x from the suppose, or from the free end, and we get a expression of bending moment, how it varies with x, and then we can draw the bending moment profile from this end to this end. Similarly for shear force also we do that. So the bending moment or shear force profile let me just give an example here. This is a bending moment diagram. So it is a graphical representation of shear force distribution and bending moment distribution along the length of the beam. So the x-axis is the length of the beam, and the y is the amount of shear force or the amount of bending moment. So if you have the bending moment diagram, you can just take, and if you want whatever internal force you want at whatever section, you can just take the this. Suppose I want the bending moment in this part. Suppose I want the bending moment at the midpoint of the beam. So I'll just go to the diagram of the bending moment. I'm going to take what is this value. I can find out the bending moment instantly. So drawing the shear force diagram and bending moment diagram is also valuable in the real problems, and it is one of also, considering the UG structural analysis course, it is a very important topic. You're almost sure to get a question from that in every exam you give, and also exams like GATE and all. Okay, now I'll explain what shear force and bending moment actually is. So now, suppose I have a cantilever beam and I have a tip load P in the downward direction. This is a fixed end. So I take a section X, like I take a section AA at a distance X from this fixed end. So I cut it into two parts. So free body diagrams have two parts. You have learned free body diagrams in class 12, of course, 11, 12. So I'm assuming you know how to draw a free body diagram. So what it means is that here this part I'm going to assume that this part has the load P, and at this end which I have cut, this when I cut a section and split a body into two, and if the original body was in equilibrium, which I'm assuming it was, because in civil engineering we have to assume everything is in equilibrium, because we don't want any rigid body motion. Like if the building moves, if the building is moving rigidly, that means it has failed. So we are not going into that. We have to keep all our structures in equilibrium. So if the body was in equilibrium, then if I divide it into two parts, each of the parts have to be individually in equilibrium. And how does that happen? It happens through the internal forces. So when I take this part, I have a P here downwards. Now when I cut this, there can be some force here, force being generated here, some moment generated here. I don't know what the value is, but taking the equilibrium of this part, you can say that since there is a downward force of P on this beam, like this beam piece, there has to be some upward force equal to P, so that it doesn't move in this direction. So the sigma Fy has to be 0. So we can here say that the shear force V is equal to P. So I have this beam here. There is a downward force P here. So there has to be an equal and opposite upward force P here. But now you can see that if there is a P here and there is a P here, then it is also about to rotate like this. So I need something to stop the moment as well, to counter the moment. So that is why the moment the generated moment here is in this direction. So the stabilizing bending moment that is generated at the surface, at the junction of the section, is in this sense. So this moment, like the generated moment, was in the clockwise direction, and the bending moment here is in the anti-clockwise direction, and it is equal to P into this length. You know that a moment, a couple is like a moment generated by a couple of forces is the magnitude of the force multiplied by the distance between them. So it will be P into this length. So this is the shear force and bending moment at this section AA. Similarly, I can take any section. This X can vary from 0 to L, capital L, if this is the length, and I can find out the shear force and bending moment at any section. And that is a concept that stays, like whenever, even when you are finding out the bending moment or shear force diagram of very complicated structure with a lot of different loading, a lot of boundary conditions inside, and the concept remains the same. You have to take a you have to take section at certain length from one end, and you have to take the free body diagram and find out and ensure and like find out the bending moment and shear force using equilibrium of one part of it. Sign convention in bending moment and shear force is very important, and it is also not very intuitive, because generally when we are writing the equations of equilibrium, what we do is we just say that when we are writing sigma fx equal to 0, we just assume that force towards the right is positive and force towards the left is negative, or vice versa. And similarly, we generally say upward force is positive and downward force is negative when we are writing sigma Fy equal to 0. And when we are writing the sigma moment equal to 0, we can say that clockwise is positive, anti-clockwise is negative, and you can easily get the values. But bending moment and shear force does not work in that way. Bending moment sign convention is that when you are coming from the left, clockwise moment is positive. When you are coming from the right, anti-clockwise moment is positive. Similarly, when you are coming from the right, from the left, uh, the anti-clockwise moment is negative, and when you are coming from the right, clockwise moment is negative. Shear force also, when you are coming from the left, upward shear force is positive. When you are coming from the right, downward shear force is positive, and complementary. Now again, see, no one can say a sign convention that everyone has to follow, because sign convention depends on what you are taking. So if you want, you can take the opposite as well, but you have to take in this pattern. Okay, you cannot say that both coming from right and left, I'm going to call clockwise moment positive. You cannot do that. Then the bending moment diagram is not going to match whether you come from this side or that side. You can take the section X from this end or that end. So that you end up with a unique bending moment diagram, you have to take the sign convention in this format. But it wouldn't matter if you took this as negative as this as positive, it will be consistent anyway. So I advise, firstly, I would advise you use this sign convention because most standard books use it. And secondly, I would advise that in if you are writing a subjective exam, just mention the sign convention. Even if you are using the one which is used in most books, I always used to mention the sign convention in the copy because that's a safe way. That's a just an extra safety measure. Okay, this I showed what shear force and bending moment diagram is. Now let's go to some examples. Okay, are there any questions so far? For the people who joined new late, I would just repeat that I started the course 1 week early. So the week one class was actually when I took it, the course had not officially started. So I have taught week 2 and 3 when week 1 and 2 was supposed to be. So I'm repeating the lecture of week 1 today, and from next week onwards, it's again going to be week 4, 5, according to what is supposed to happen. Okay. If there are no questions, I'll continue with the example. One second. So this is a beam which has one hinge support, one roller support. It has 2 point loads and one uniformly distributed load over C to D. Uniformly distributed load, look at the unit, okay? Point load has the unit of Newton or kilonewton. It has a unit of force, but uniformly distributed load has the unit of force divided by length, because it is an load intensity. So 3 kilonewton per meter force intensity applies over 4 meters. So the total magnitude here is 3 into 4 kilonewton, so 12 kilonewton, but it is spread over this CD portion. First step in solving bending moment diagram is to solve the bending moment and shear force diagram is to solve the reaction forces, and it is mostly the first step in doing everything in structural analysis. Once before you have the reaction forces, you are actually have a lot of unknowns after which you cannot proceed further. So first solve the support reactions, then you can just treat the support reactions as applied forces because you know the values. So I'm going to write the equations sigma Fy equal to 0. So, okay, what will be the support reactions algebraically? There is an Ra here, there is an Rf here, and there also had to be an Ha here since this is a hinge. But since there is no horizontal applied load on the entire beam, Ha will be 0, because if Ha is non-zero, then who will, like, is reaction force is something that is a response to applied loading. So if there is no applied loading in the horizontal direction, there will be no reaction, no horizontal reaction at all. So there are effectively two support reactions, Ra and Rf. So Ra plus Rf is 5 plus 10, which are the point loads, plus 3 into 4, which is the total load in CD. So one equation I get is Ra plus Rf is 27. Another equation I have is sigma mf equal to 0. So here I'm taking the moment about f, but you can take it about a, about b, about c, about any point in the plane, and you will see that you end up with the same answer. You can try it and see, just to be convinced that it doesn't matter which point, about which point you are taking the moment. So sigma mf equal to 0 means what are the moments being applied about this point? One is the Ra. I have assumed it is in the upward direction, suppose. So Ra into this total length, which is 3 plus 1 plus 4 plus 3 plus 1, it is 12 meter. So Ra into 12 in the clockwise direction. Then 5 is acting downwards. So 5 is providing a moment in the anti-clockwise direction. So 5 into 9. 9 is B2F, 1 plus 4 plus 3 plus 1. Then this 10 is also applying about in the anti-clockwise direction, 10 into 1. And now this UDL, how does a UDL apply moment? UDL is a distributed load, right? But since this is a uniformly distributed load, you can assume that it is concentrated like the if while taking moment you can assume that it was a concentrated load at the midpoint. So the midpoint of CD is 2 meter from C and 2 meter for D from D. So I can assume that 12 meter concentrated at this point. So the moment 12 kilonewton concentrated at this point. So the moment will be 12 into 1 plus 3 plus 2 here. So you will see that 4 into 3 into 6. That is also in the anti-clockwise direction. So I get Ra from here. Ra from this equation you get 10.58, and putting the value of Ra in this equation you get the value of Rf 16.42. And we actually have three equations of equilibrium, right? Sigma fx equal to 0 was also supposed to be an equation, but that equation is not of any use here because there is no horizontal load applied, so there is no horizontal reaction. So HA will be 0 anyway. Now I will take a section xx at a distance x from left support or right support and solve for equilibrium and transverse force. So I'm drawing the shear force diagram right now. So see now, and one rule you have to follow is, if it is like you have to take sections separately between uh, in AB you have to take, then there is a point load at B, so the nature will change from at the point B. So when you're taking the section at BC, you have to take a separate, you will end up with a separate equation. So every time something like the point load or a boundary condition happens, you have to change it. So A to B, then B to C will change, then C to D, D to E, E to F. So all of these will have different equations and you have to take the portions separately. So like this. In AB, if you take an section X from A, RA is 10.58, you have already found out. So you will see that the Sx is equal to 10.58. It will be constant because I am taking the equation of equilibrium of the tiny portion A to some point such that A to that point length is X. Portion BC will have an extra player in the equation. This is the point load at B. So Sx will be Ra minus 5. So the constant shear force in this BC portion will be 5.58. Then when there is a UDL, it is, see, when there is no load applied in a portion, is basically the shear force remains constant. But when there is a UDL, the shear force exhibits a linear nature, and that is proven from here. If you just take the equilibrium, suppose you have taken X, where X lies like this, X is somewhere around here. So you see that Sx is Ra minus 5 minus 3 into this length. So this length is X minus AC, X minus 4. So here we get an equation that Sx is proportional to X. And to draw, you know that to draw a linear line, you can just take the end values. So Sx, Sc and Sd you find out these two values, and you can just join them by a straight line in your diagram. And similarly for DE and EF, you will also end up with constant values because they don't have any loading. So how the equation, this is the bending moment, I'll show it later. This how the shear force diagram looks like is this. This is a constant value, then there is a point load, so there is a jump, then there is again a constant value, then there is a linear decrement, then there is again a constant value. Again, due to the point load 10 kilonewton, there is a jump, then a constant value, and then the reaction forces are also effectively jumps. So the diagram closes. So the ultimate, you have to close it up to this axis. So this is a closed proper shear force diagram, and you will see that I would advise you to at least solve one problem from both direction. Like take the section X from A and take a section X from F, and you will apply the sign convention as I said, and you will see that you end up with the exact same diagram. That here, see, RA and RF are both in the upward direction. So as I said, when we come from the left side, upward shear force is positive. So this I am drawing positive. While if you were coming from the right side, the upward shear force is negative. So this goes at negative anyway. And even when you came from the left side up to F, you ended up here at negative point. So you get the identical diagram whether you come from this side or that side. Just to convince yourself, you must try this out at least once. In one problem, come from both sides and see. And now let's look at the bending moment diagram. Similarly, you have to take Now, bending moment diagram nature is actually 1 degree higher than the shear force diagram. So, in a place where shear force diagram is a constant value, bending moment diagram is linear. Then, where the shear force diagram is linear, like in the portion CD, the bending moment diagram will be a parabola, a 2 degree curve. Similarly, that happens. Similarly, it will like scale up everywhere. So, and when the bending moment diagram is constant, there is no shear force. Shear force will be zero. But you don't see, these are the things that you will discover as you keep on solving problems. If you come from the first principles, you can have none of this knowledge and you can still end up drawing the correct bending moment and shear force diagram. So how we are doing it here is, in this portion AB, I'm taking a section x from A. Mx is Ra into x, so 10.58 into x. So you see, we automatically come up with a linear equation. In shear force we had a constant equation. Here Sx was 10.58. Here Sx is Mx is 10.58 into x. Here, when we go to portion BC, we have 10.58x minus 5 into x minus 3. Then here, when there is a UDL, we see that there is a parabolic term here. The parabolic term comes because I have taken a section x from A, like I have taken a distance x from A. This part you understand, Ra into x. 5 into x minus 3, this part is understandable. Then what happens about the bending moment for due to the UDL? I am at a distance here somehow, so the amount of UDL I've crossed so far is x minus 4, because AC is 4 meter. So the magnitude of force that has been applied is 3, which is the intensity W into x minus 4. That is the intensity. And I said before that when we are concerned with moment, we can assume that the UDL was concentrated at the centroid. So here the centroid will be this portion, whatever portion I've already encountered, which was x minus 4, I'm going to consider that it is concentrated at the center of that x minus 4. So you will see that about this point, there is the distance I have to consider is x minus 4 divided by 2. So the total moment term becomes the intensity into x minus 4 into x minus 4 by 2. So that is how we end up with this kind of expression, which is a parabola. You can take the values of at both ends so that you can draw. Then you get portion D and EF is easy enough. And another thing is that in a parabola like this, like it is unlike a linear graph. If you know that in the linear part, if you know the two endpoints, you can just join by a straight line. But if you, in a parabola, if you know the two endpoints, you don't know the nature, right? You cannot, because it's a 2D curve. So what we do is we calculate the maximum bending moment in the portion CD by doing, to take this equation, you do dm dx equal to 0. So you will find that x is equal to 5.86, somewhere here. Somewhere here the bending moment is 0. Find out bending moment is maximum. Find out the value of the bending moment by putting it in this equation. Now that I have an idea, I have 3 points. I have the value at MC, I have the value MD. I also have a value M max at some point in between. So now that I have 3 points, I can join them and I can kind of represent the expression. See, this is linear, this is linear. These two are linear, and here I know this value, I know this value, and at 5.58, what is 5.86, 5.86 meter from A, I know the maximum bending moment, which is 42. So I can join these three and I can draw the nature. So this is again, linear is exact, parabolic nature is not exact, but you can, this is kind of qualitatively the nature with 3 points that you know, that will be enough. Like if you are asked to draw a bending moment diagram and which has a UDL, if you can, if you know the end values and you plot the maximum value, that will be enough. You don't have to you don't have to find the bending moment value at every point so that you can draw it exactly. Okay. Were there any doubts so far? Okay, this is a different kind of problem. It has a triangular loading. It is not a UDL. It is a triangular kind of loading, downward loading. So we solve the support. So now the magnitude of force in a triangular loading is basically the area under this triangle, which will be half into L into W, because W is the peak value. So that is the half into W into L magnitude distributed in a triangular manner, so that the loading at A, exact load at A and B is 0, the load at C is W, and the rest is distributed accordingly, so that the total load is half del WL. So solve support reactions, this is a symmetric, but this is a symmetric structure since there is no horizontal reaction. If there was horizontal reaction, then the hinge and roller support would act differently and it would not be symmetric anymore. But since there is no horizontal reaction, both the A and B supports actually virtually act as rollers. So it's a symmetric structure. So the RA equal to RB equal to WL by 4. Since the total L is W, total load is WL by 2. Now we take a section XX at distance x from left support or right support and solve for equation in the transverse force. So Sx is Ra minus half in, now I've got x here. So what is the load? I said that you have to take the area under the triangle. So that will be half into x into wx, whatever the ordinate is at this point. And to find that ordinate, you know that this is a similar triangle property. So if I go L by 2 length, I go w. So if I go x, how much do I go? That is how we find the wx, and we get that wx square by L. The total expression here is, this is wx square by L, because that ordinate will be 2x by L, I think 2x by L. So this 2 and 2 cancel out, and that Ra is WL by 4. So we have SA, and SC actually turns out to be 0, you will see, when you put the value of x equal to L by 2 in this equation. And Sx will be 0 when x is equal to L by 2. And the structure will not remain symmetric if there was applied horizontal load, as I said. And now, so how does this look like? The shear force diagram looks like this. The shear force diagram itself is a two parabola now. So this, it goes like this to 0, and then it goes like this to here. And the bending moment diagram is, we know that it is 1 degree higher than shear force diagram. So I am expecting the shear bending moment diagram to be of 3 degree, because if the shear force diagram was a parabola, the bending moment diagram will be a cubic polynomial. Now let us see how that happens. I'm again taking an x section XX. So mx is Ra into x into, now again the moment, the way we were taking moment for UDL was, we to take the UDL concentrated at the centroid. So here also we have to take the UDL concentrated at the centroid of this triangle. Now a triangle centroid is at distance base perpendicular divided by 3 from the base. I will just show centroid of triangle. So the centroid is, just 1 second, right angle triangle. This is the right angle triangle. So it's like this. It is h by, if this is h, then the centroid along this direction will be h by 3 from the base, and if this is b, then the centroid will be b by 3 from this base. So similarly, if you take the UDL and you take the centroid, you will see that the centroid will be at a distance x by 3 from this end. So this is WL x square by 2L, which is the magnitude, into x by 3. So we get a cubic polynomial, because here there is x square, here there is x. So the expression is WL by 4x minus WX cube by 6L. Then you get MA equal to 0 and MC equal to WL square by 12. And since loading is symmetric, bending moment diagram will be symmetric over the center. So it goes as a 3 degree polynomial to WL square by 12, and then it comes down to 0 again. This is a similar problem. It has an internal hinge. What an internal hinge does is, it you see, internal hinge, if there is an internal hinge, you do not have to take the x separately. Like here you have to consider the portion DC and then CA. You don't have to consider the B separately. Solve support reactions. We get these RARC. And internal hinge at B implies that moment at B from either left side or right side will be 0. Here we will take from right side. So here we need this internal hinge to solve the support reaction, because it is a, like, it has three support reactions here and one here. So it is a 1 degree indeterminate. It would have been a 1 degree indeterminate structure if there was no internal hinge. But the internal hinge provides us with an additional information, which is that moment at B from either left or right side should be 0. Like you can take any one equation and get the value. So here we get RC and RA value, and then you take the section XX. Here I am taking from right suppose, and in portion DC you get the shear force diagram as a linear. As one second. Yes, it's a linear expression. So you get the value at SD and SC, and then in portion CA you take it. It's again a linear. Since there is a UDL, you know that it is already going to be linear. So let's see the nature. The nature here is it goes linearly. Then there is a support reaction here. So there is effectively a point load here, right? The reaction, there is a jump, and then there is again linear, and it ends again here because there is a point load again here. And the bending moment diagram, we take the portion DC and CA, and you will see that whatever expression of CA you get, if you put the value of this B point, like since I'm taking from the right side, I will put 3A. You will put 3A, you will see that it comes out to be 0. The bending moment at internal hinge has to be 0. Even if you didn't know that, you will see from the equation you will get the same thing. So here the bending moment diagram here is to parabola, and you will see that at exactly at the internal hinge it became 0. It cut the x-axis here. Then it is again a parabola which goes up to D, goes up to 0 at D. So yes, I have already taught this before, but this was kind of a repeat class. Are there any questions? From next class I am going to continue normal, I think week 4. One second. Okay, week 4 is deflection of beams. So in the previous lecture we have seen, I have taught principle of virtual work to get the nodal displacement of trusses, and so next week I'm going to continue with deflection profile of beams. Okay, then I will end the class. We'll meet again next week.